I have owned dozens of watches throughout my 3 years of watch collecting. I'm super excited to share this watch with you because other than my Rolex, I have not found a watch more perfect than this one. And this is the Nivada Grenchen Chronomaster. This watch is an incredible 38mm chronograph, perfect for small wrist. It's an almost one-to-one recreation of its vintage counterpart with an original design. But I don't want to spoil too much yet. If you haven't met me before, my name is Keanu Carey. I like to document my watch collecting journey, so if you want to join, consider hitting that subscribe button. I bought this watch with my own money, and I've worn it for about 3 months now. And so in this video, I want to share how did I end up with this watch, and why is this the perfect watch for me. So it all starts out because I have a list of watches that I'm willing to buy for the right price. These are watches I want to experience at one point, I want to own, not necessarily want to keep, but I just want to experience them for how they are. I buy all my watches used because I very often flip them after wearing them for a couple months. It's easy this way because I'm able to learn about a lot of different brands and different watches, as well as it means more videos for you. But unlike my other watches, the Nivada Grenchen Chronomaster in 38mm has been on my list for about 2 whole years now. I first started watching YouTube videos on it, like this video right here, and then I saw it in an AD in Chicago, and I kept wanting to buy it, but at the retail price I didn't want to get it, so I was looking for a really great deal, and I finally found one. And after 3 months of wearing it, I can finally say it was worth the wait. But what made me really pull the trigger on this? Well, my friend was selling his Nivada Grenchen Chronomaster. He is a strap maker, and he also sells watches on Instagram. And when he sent me photos of his that he was selling, it looked immaculate on his wrist. The condition looked great. He was even offering 5 straps with it. And at 60% of the retail price, it was almost a no-brainer deal. After weeks of texting back and forth, I finally pulled the trigger on it, and he sent it all the way from the Czech Republic. It ended up getting stuck in Berlin for almost a month, and I was getting really discouraged, but eventually it came in, and I must say it was really well packaged. Speaking of the packaging, the watch itself comes in an amazing packaging. I love the box that Nivada Grenchen use. They have a plane on here, and it has 2 different poles, almost like the magnetic poles. I love the text in gold. I think the simple black and gold box looks amazing, and it's a really small box, which I appreciate because I have quite literally what is like a death bin of all the boxes that have been used just sitting there on my floor, and I hate when I have to add more boxes to it because I never use them. I hate when I have to store them, and I hate when watches come with papers because I always end up damaging them no matter how neatly I pack them away. Taking the sleeve off, you can see that this is a very simple box. It has this little seal. It's very nicely made though, and it pulls up quite reminiscent of like an iPhone box. Like it's got that slow pull up, and then the watch will sit right here. And overall, it's a really neat looking presentation. There's no unneeded fluff or anything distracting you from the watch that you're getting. If you've ever seen an Omega box, those things are massive. And I really appreciate when brands give you like a smaller, more neat box like this, especially having so many watches myself. On the inside, it comes with a very neat little picture of the watch, as well as a little bit of history on the side. I think this is awesome. It saves me from having those stupid paper pamphlets, and it just looks great. They did a really good job with the coloring and the font, and I really like this box. It also comes with a little tiny warranty card. What I will say is this one did not give me my number, nor does it have a date or a signature on it, which I found really odd. I don't know if whenever he bought it, they didn't give it to him like that, but this was just a very odd inclusion, I thought. And then you get this little pendant. This little pendant's cute. It's cool. It feels very heavy, for what it looks like. You would think it's just plastic, but it doesn't feel like just plastic. Is it useful? No, but it's a nice little touch for a luxury watch. Is Nivada Grenchen a luxury brand though? Well, despite being relatively unknown, Nivada Grenchen timepieces have been making watches since 1926. Next year, they'll be about 100 years old, and they have a really rich history. In 1930s, Nivada Grenchen was one of the first companies to manufacture automatic watches, and this is because they were so close to the factories in Grenchen that were making them. This led to the creation of Nivada Grenchen's first waterproof automatic watch called the Antarctic in 1950. The watch was worn by members of the American Navy's Deep Freeze 1 during their expedition of the South Pole from 1955 to 1956. But it wasn't until 1961 when the company would launch the Chronomaster, a waterproof chronograph up to 200 meters without the use of screw-down crown or screw-down pushers. Unfortunately, Nivada Grenchen perished during the quartz crisis, which is largely why they're unknown today. But they were revived by a group of watch veterans and brought back into the brand that we now know today as Nivada Grenchen. One more thing, if I showed you this watch, would you think it was a fake Chronomaster? Well, it's actually a partnership with the brand Croton. Nivada Grenchen partnered with Croton, who distributed the Chronomaster in the US market in the 1960s. Sometimes they were twin marked or just marked Croton. Well, why is this watch perfect for me? And quite literally, it's everything about it. I just love this watch, but let's start with the case. I really like the case architecture on this watch. It has very angular lugs, and they're drilled lugs, which make it easy for strap changes. The crown has a space underneath, making it easy to pull out, but there's no space on top because the bezel kind of hangs over it, which is really nice. The crown itself is big enough and enough knurling to wind, and this is nice because it is a manually wound chronograph, and so you are going to be winding it every single day. That's one thing about the Speedmaster I don't like as much, is that winding that watch is not as fun as winding the Nivada Grenchen. It comes with a double dome sapphire crystal, but it doesn't mention anything about anti-reflective coating, and honestly with the black dial and the double dome crystal, it definitely is leaving a lot of distortions on the dial. But for me, this is a good thing, and we'll talk about that later. The next thing is that it comes with a dive bezel, and this is really nice because I love timing things. This one is friction fit, and I must say that whatever oil or whatever they use, the mechanism, it is very firmly fit. Like, it doesn't feel like I'm bumping it and it's loosely coming off. It doesn't feel like it's scratchy or like, I'm struggling to turn the bezel. It's a very fluid motion, and I've really enjoyed this watch. I've worn it in the shower, like with hot steam, just to see if the steam would mess with it, and it hasn't had any issues. It's been very smooth, and I really think they did a good job. It was just something that you could easily cheap out on. The bezel has fully graduated markings, which I fully appreciate. I like seeing 5 through 55 on the bezel, and I like seeing the individual minute marks because it's nice for me to be able to track time. I did meet someone who said they didn't like when graduated marks go past the 20 because it wasn't very true to dive watches, and I just think that's dumb. I think it looks way better when it's fully graduated like that. Also, if you like symmetry, the full graduations make it more symmetrical. So the bezel itself has a very deep coin edge, making it easy to grip and turn both ways, and I really love it. One more thing I'll mention in the specifications is that the bezel kind of overhangs, which makes it a ton easier to turn this bezel. One of my least favorite things about my Seiko SKX is that the bezel doesn't overhang, and it's just not fun to turn that one. Some people might be used to the ratcheting of a dive bezel, but me personally, I find myself when I need to time at something, it can be kind of loud and people will like look at me. One time I wanted to time a test during class, and when I went to time the test, I started at the beginning of the test, right? So I moved it to where it needed to be, and some people were looking at me. They're like, "What? It's silent. We're taking a test." And so the friction fit bezel, it's just a nice little touch. And in my life, it works a little bit better than a loud ratcheting bezel. One more thing you'll notice is that this also has GMT markings on it. So underneath the 5 through 55, there's a 1 through 12 markers. And this is another reason why they wanted to make it bidirectional, is so that you could use the GMT. I personally use this feature myself whenever I traveled to the West Coast, so I can track the Midwest. But for me, the star of the show was really the chronograph. I love the chronograph complication, and this watch comes with one, especially a mechanical chronograph. The pushes on this watch are kind of interesting. The top one kind of has a 2-step push, but it's still very snappy, and the bottom one just has a 1-step push, and it resets very snappy as well. It's a Sellita movement, which is the Sellita SW510. One thing I'll mention real quick is that they just discontinued the model with the Sellita, and the new ones now sport the Landern 70 movement. But for my movement, the left subdial is going to have your running seconds, and the right subdial will have a 30-minute counter. And of course, the central seconds hand will be the chronograph seconds. I really like Sellita movements. They do a really good job of being reliable, and this one's actually decorated to look really nice. It has blued screws, has perlage, and overall it's a really nice looking movement. Not only that though, it is going to be affordable to service. It's not in-house or anything. There's no automatic rotor to remove. This being a manual winding caliper, it's going to be relatively affordable to service, which is something I need when I own a lot of watches. I cannot afford to service a ton of watches. I just can't. This watch beats at 28,000 beats per hour, or 4 hertz, and has a power reserve of about 48 hours, which I think is respectable. For a manual winding watch, 2 days is pretty good. While I was doing some research, I came across another YouTuber that said there is a ghost position, but not a ghost date. And my experience with this, I have not had a ghost date or a ghost position. There's only 2 positions. The first one is winding, and the second one is pulling out to set the time. That's my personal experience with it, but I have heard other people say that there might be one with a ghost date or a ghost date position. Having 2 separate ways to track time is really awesome, and in my daily life, I find it really helpful. I personally have been to the gym where I use the dive bezel to track my 1-hour workout, and I would use the chronograph to time my 1-minute rest. It's something that no other watch I've had has offered me, and I really do appreciate having the two separate ways to time. I'm surprised I've gone this long without talking about how beautiful this watch is. And that really is, to me, I love the dial on it. It uses a classic black dial, so it's going to match anything. It's going to be very versatile. The dial is slightly sized up, but it's not really noticeable, and it doesn't displace anything on the original design. I really like the 3 lines of text on the bottom that say Chronomaster, Aviator, and Sea Diver. Aviator and Sea Diver are kind of like, they kind of contradict each other because Aviator, it's all about being as high above the sea level, and Sea Diver is all about being below the sea level. But this watch can do it all. It really strikes that versatile everyday wear, and that's what it was meant for. It was meant to do quite literally anything. On the right subdial, there's even a regatta timer highlighted in red, and it starts at 5 and it counts down to 0 from the 0 to 5 mark. This is for yacht racing, which I don't do on an everyday basis, but if you do, this watch has got you covered. I really do love the red highlight. I think the pop of red really adds something interesting to this watch. It's almost like an X factor. It is really like, I feel like as watch collectors, we love pops of red. Think of like the SKX, the red text on that, the Pelagos, the red text on that one. At the top of the dial, there are 2 separate dots right next to the 12-hour marker, and this is to help with legibility and orientation. This being an aviator watch, do you need to have something to help with orientation? Because who knows, you might find yourself upside down looking at this watch and trying to read it. Not me though, I've never flown a plane in my life, but I really would like to get my pilot's license, but it's really expensive. Another feature this watch has that I've never used is the tachymeter around the dial. It's tucked very tightly between the bezel and the dial, and the domed crystal kind of creates distortions around it. It can look really pretty, but this was actually used back in the day, but I must say I've never used it in the 3 months I've worn it. One thing I have used and that I really do love is the hour hand. This is a broad arrow hour hand. It's very reminiscent of the Omega Speedmaster, another manually wound chronograph. It's a really good look. I think it really adds to the legibility of the watch. It's just so interesting to look at, especially in contrast to the long sword minute hand and the lance seconds hands on the subdials. I think that this watch just, it offers an incredible variety of hands to look at. It's so interesting to look at. That's just how I could put the dial. This watch also comes with Fotina, but this isn't just for an aesthetic difference. This is actually functional. It allows for a lot more legibility when you look at the watch. There's a lot going on this dial. And I was looking at the monochrome version, the white and black version without the Fotina, and it can be kind of hard to read the time on that one. But with this one, I have never had an issue. When I just glance down, I can read the time instantly, and the function's only there if I need them to be there. If you're a hater of Fotina, I totally understand that, but I honestly think this is the best way they could have done it because it does help when I'm reading the dial. It kind of allows the markers and the hands to pop. Another thing that I hate Fotina for is it usually causes very inconsistent lume colors. But not with this one. This one shines super bright. They did a great job. This is about in the same price point, if not less, than the Oris Diver I just reviewed. And that watch had inconsistent lume. Not this one though. This one has great lume, and I love the lume shots of this one. I've actually seen it glowing without even using a lume flashlight. Like if I just come in from outdoors, the lume is still glowing really bright. It's little details like this that some other luxury brands like Oris don't get right, but this brand did it right, and I love that they did it right because honestly, they could have dropped the ball on this one. On the bottom of the dial, it says L Swiss. Swiss for being Swiss made, and L replaces the T. Tritium would usually be used on the old ones, but now it has L because it is made with Luminova. I think this is a great touch to bring the modern era to the vintage era and the vintage era to the modern era. That's another reason why I love this watch. It blends everything I love about vintage watches, the charm, the interesting details, the uniqueness of them, and it blends it with the modern era, with the reliability, the classy looks, the shiny polish, the better lume. There's just so much to love about modern watches, but I do love the charm of vintage pieces. If you haven't seen my video about my collection, I have a lot of vintage pieces in it, and this watch, it kind of bridges the gap between my modern and vintage pieces. And honestly, it's one of my favorite watches for that exact reason. I think I like not just vintage watches, but not just modern pieces. The number one thing that keeps me from buying and keeping a watch or buying and selling a watch is the proportions and the specifications. How it wears is so important to me. I hate it when my watch wears loose. I hate it when I can't get the right fit. I hate it when it's tight and it's squeezing my arm. I don't like it when watches don't fit. I don't like it when they're top heavy and they're sliding around on my wrist. And maybe if you can relate to that, let me tell you, this watch is a dream to wear. I got the bracelet for it and I love the bracelet. I love sporty looks. I love bracelets. I'm a bracelet guy. It came on a tropic rubber strap. That strap is amazing. It has plenty of holes to fit plenty of wrist sizes. It's very flexible, but it's also very sturdy. Overall, the straps get a 10 out of 10, but we'll talk about that more later. This watch comes in at a diameter of 38 millimeters, but the bezel hangs over to 39 millimeters. I must say though that it has a very small presence on the wrist if you have a smaller wrist, and that's a good thing because the dial itself is only 30 millimeters across. The lug to lug is 46 millimeters. This is kind of my sweet spot where I don't really like to go over it. 47 millimeter watches, lug to lug, just look a little bit bigger on me, but the 46 millimeters, that's my sweet spot. And for reference, I have about a 5.75 inch wrist. I think I said that earlier, but I know people always ask even if I say it. If you do have a smaller wrist, this watch is going to fit perfect on you. That's just, I'm going to say that right. Like if you have a 6-inch wrist and below, this watch is perfect. If you have a 6.5-inch wrist to maybe like a 7-inch wrist, this watch might start to wear a little small on you, but you got to try it on because it's still an amazing watch. And I think that if you're okay with smaller watches, then this is the watch to get. It's going to be a little bit more comfortable. I love smaller watches because they're not as top heavy when they're smaller. The thickness also plays a big part in it being top heavy. This one's only 13.5 millimeters thick, and most of that is in the 2 millimeter thick crystal and also the case back. So really, it's going to wear more like an 11 to 12 millimeter watch. Personally, my sweet spot, very perfect for me. I like it not having that automatic rotor because, well, it's going to wear a little bit more thin. You know, if it had an automatic rotor, you know you're going to be automatically like 15 millimeter thick and above. And I do not want that on my wrist. 38 by 46 by 13 seems to be the biggest I would comfortably wear on an everyday basis. If you don't know, my Rolex that I wear is a 32 by 40 millimeter and it is a 10 millimeter thick watch. That watch was really nice because it's really undersized on me. But when I want to wear a larger watch on a sports bracelet, this is the watch I tend to gravitate to. I mentioned that it had drilled lugs and it was a strap monster, and I stand by that because one, it looks great on a bracelet. This is a bracelet sports watch all the way. It looks like the Omega Speedmaster, especially with this flat link bracelet on it. But if you don't want that look, that's totally okay. It looks great on a tropic rubber strap. It kind of reminds me of those skin diver aesthetics, very reminiscent of the 1960s. It really looks great on leather straps, but I wouldn't say that it's cuff friendly because it is on the thicker side with that dome crystal. But if you have a smart casual outfit, leather straps look amazing on this watch too. That black dial is just going to match any color strap you put on it. My favorite strap combo that I found other than the OEM bracelet is going to be the Artem strap. It's the classic one with the black and the red stitching. It has a deployant clasp on it, and honestly, this makes this watch just pop. It looks so good. It's very fun. It feels very luxurious. And because it has the red stitching, it's going to match the red highlights on the regatta timer. And I love it when you match red stitching with red accents on the dial. I think that this is a perfect strap combo. This might be more comfortable for people who don't like to wear bracelets. I love wearing my watches on bracelets. It's the most comfortable thing I find for my wrist. But if you have wrists that swell up a lot, maybe the bracelets can get a little tight on you and you just prefer a leather strap or something. Before we get to the con section, I will say that the bracelet came separately. It came on the tropic rubber strap. That tropic rubber strap is amazing. It's vulcanized rubber. It has quick release spring bars. It feels really flexible and sturdy. And overall, I think that is a great strap. I'm just more of a bracelet guy. Without exaggeration, this might be a perfect watch. And when I say that, you know, there's always a perfect watch for everyone, but for me, it is perfect. I think there are some things that could be improved. Like, it definitely needs to have 200 meters of water resistance like the old one did. If the old one could do it, why don't we have the new one do it? Another thing I noticed while I was filming is the black dial and the dome crystal create a ton of distortions. I've never had this impact the legibility for me personally, but it does kind of impact the legibility on the edges where the tachymeter is. I don't ever use a tachymeter and I can read the hour hands and the minute hands just fine, so it doesn't affect me, but it might annoy you a little bit. I really love dome crystals. It's one of my favorite parts about vintage watches, so it's a trade-off I'm willing to make. I guess my only other complaint is they don't offer a bigger size for bigger wrist. I'm not usually an advocate for bigger wrist, but this one looks amazing on me. It's super proportional, and if only they had a variant that would be more proportional to their wrist, I think bigger wrists would find this watch a lot more enjoyable. And I'd kind of like to see a third register version. I think they make one, but honestly, it doesn't have the same charm. The dual register format is kind of okay. Despite the cons, should you buy this watch? And I think yes, you absolutely should. I think we can all agree that modern watches are starting to blend together. They all kind of look the same, and this watch has a very cool X factor to it. The only other watch we could really compare it to is the Omega Speedmaster with the broad arrow hand and as well as the flat link bracelet. But at a fraction of the price, I think it's totally worth it. And let's be honest, it definitely separates itself with like a billion different complications on it. The only thing now is I need a moon phase on the back and a power reserve indicator. Maybe even add a compass bezel so that way we can have 3 different complications on one bezel. This watch brings something special to the wearing experience, and if you own this watch, you'll testify it looks great. It is an amazing watch, and I think it separates itself so far from anything else out there. I've had a lot of good memories with this watch. I chose this watch to be the one and only watch I bring to my trip to San Francisco. I spent 7 days in San Francisco, hiking, traveling, doing all sorts of things, all sorts of rough adventures with this watch, and it handled everything. I even went out to a nice dinner. It looked fantastic. And one thing I'll say is that the first thing we heard when we landed in San Francisco was gunshots. And this watch, yes, it can look really flashy on the bracelet, but the name brand, it's not very well known. It's not very like flashy name brand. And so I never really like had a fear that I would get my watch stolen. If I wore my Rolex, maybe I would have a different issue, but this watch for me has been perfect because it's just not very flashy. I'm really grateful to have owned this watch and be able to make a video about it. It's quickly become one of my favorite watches I've owned. I'm really excited to try out other independent watchmakers around this $2,000 mark. I tried out Oris Diver 65 and I was really impressed by that watch. I'm really impressed by this watch. And so I think that $2,000 is a really great sweet spot because not only are they great watches, but they tend to depreciate, so you can grab them for great steals. Another one that I'm really hoping to try out one day is the Frederic Constant, the FC World Timer or chronographs. Those ones look amazing. There's a bunch of other watches on my list that I'm hoping to try in the future. Definitely Nomos. They're around that $2,000 range. I really want to get a Nomos one day to just see what all the hype's about. You know, they're blowing up on YouTube. Let's see if they're really worth it. Watch collecting and watch enthusiasm really go hand in hand. It's all about experiencing these watches and owning them and just really getting to connect with the brands and learn about them. And if you can't, there's no worry about that. There's a bunch of cool brands that are like under 200 bucks. I have a video right here picked out for you. It has great watches with great heritage, all under $200. And if you want to go see that video, go click on it. I'll see you over there. Thanks for watching. Peace.